Hi everyone, Anthony Fantano here, internet's busiest music nerd. You know who it is, and thank you for listening to this new episode of the Needle Drop Podcast. Before we get into the show, we want to remind you that this is a listener-supported podcast, which means it exists because of those who support it, and they do so in a few different ways. One, they get weekly downloads of this show via a monthly subscription on our support page. We will link you to it in the description box. Looks like this, button right there. Also, you can hit up our Amazon Associates link, where basically we get a kickback for all purchases you make on Amazon.com when you use this link. Only works in the US though, unfortunately, but you can use it to basically make purchases you were already planning on making on Amazon, and that helps out this podcast as well. Also, you can stream it on YouTube and share it with a friend. All support is appreciated. All right, thank you for listening again, and on with the show. Hi everyone, Anthony Fantano here, internet's busiest music nerd. You know who it is, and thank you for listening into a brand new episode of the Needle Drop Podcast, our weekly interview and also question and answer podcast. And on this week's show, we have a very special guest. I'm going to ask you if everything I have down here is correct by going through each one of them. Is that cool with you?
That's fine.
Okay. He is a food critic.
That is correct.
He is a YouTuber.
Indeed.
He is a shortwave radio enthusiast.
Very true.
He's a New England native.
Indeed.
He's a snappy dresser.
You got it.
And he's also an energy drink expert.
Absolutely.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show, Mr. Report of the Week himself.
Woo!
Thank you for coming on and making the time to be on this podcast and kicking it off with your trademark sense of humor.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
All right. So for anybody who's not familiar with your YouTube channel, you do quite a few things on there, but what you're most notoriously known for are a series of very dry, blunt, straightforward, and kind of well-mannered food reviews where you talk about a lot of, the latest fast food stuffs and also some things that kind of pop up in the freezer aisle. When about did you start doing that on YouTube?
All right. Now, I first started with the channel about 4 years ago in 2011. But that just started with energy drinks. And, the channel now is known for the food reviews. So I first got the idea to do the food reviews in September of 2011, but I didn't really initiate anything until probably late December, early January of 2012. And from there, I just tried out, I started reviewing McDonald's, took a little break, and I really kept the food reviews going for good, probably late 2012. Early 20.
So a lot of these energy drinks, a lot of this fast food that you're covering, I mean, it's pretty common, a lot of the food, and it's very easy access for a lot of people. I mean, a lot of people, even prior to even seeing a review of something that you're talking about, have probably eaten some of this food themselves. What sort of drew you to feel as if you needed to just kind of express yourself on this fast food? I mean, is it in some kind of way to connect with fellow food fans, or maybe heighten the standards of the food that you're reviewing in these videos, and maybe kind of send a message to some of the people selling this food that it could be of higher quality, or maybe give them a bit of a nod when they do end up doing something good?
Right. The reason why I first started branching out into the food reviews is because when you think about it, energy drink reviews, a lot of people, they do drink energy drinks, but not everyone does. It targets a certain group of people. Whereas with food, you figure, all right, well, not everyone needs an energy drink to survive, but everyone's got to eat at some point or another. And a large number of people, at least in, areas where they'd probably be watching YouTube videos, would have at least some sort of popular fast or frozen food here and there. Now, as for, I'll try to review some new items when they come out, but at the same time, I used to review some classics like, the Big Mac from McDonald's. something that probably everyone's had, or most people have had, before watching that video already. But the reason why I did items such as that was, number one, for the very small percentage of people who said, I've never had a Big Mac, let me see what Review Bra thinks about it first. And, I'm not saying that's everyone, because I highly doubt it. But another reason is just to add another opinion to that. Someone might say, I'm kind of noticing that we're going to pick on the Big Mac today. The Big Mac from McDonald's is kind of tasting, maybe it tastes different nowadays. Let me look online and see what people have to say about it. And they'll look up and they'll see a sea of voices, and it's just another voice to contribute and help people figure out, if they have any questions or ideas or inquiries about any sort of item.
So in a sense, you kind of see yourself as doing a bit of a service, like you're doing a bit of a watchdog thing for your audience. Yeah, it could be. I could be the figurative royal taster, going ahead of everyone else and just sticking a little toe in the water and just seeing how it is, and I'll try maybe some burger, and if I end up rolling on the floor throwing up after I eat it, I'll make sure I express that to everyone, so that they wouldn't have to put themselves through that misery unwillingly. Well, if I'm correct, there's actually a review you had done in the past where you had mentioned before you even walked into wherever you were buying this food, there was some kid throwing up outside. Yeah, I think I do. I did remember that one. Yeah, and that didn't even serve as a warning to you. You just bravely walked in there anyway. Yeah, I just figured, it is what it is, as I'll say from time to time, and I just said, hey, if he's throwing up, if need be, I'll join the party, and hopefully it was a good burger for the few minutes that was in my stomach before coming back out again. Well, kind of reviewing really common items like that, it can kind of serve as, I guess, a bit of a place of reference for a lot of other people, because someone can come along, see that review and say, okay, I've eaten that, so I know where he's at taste-wise because we've eaten that same thing. Yeah. He didn't like it as much as me. He liked it more than me. So from there on in, I can kind of maybe use that same, I guess, a bit of a point of reference for when he's reviewing other things in the future. That's very true. That's very true. People can use it as a reference point. Also, another point of reference that I think is in your reviews, something that we've all had before that you reviewed recently. You did a water review. Yes, I did. Which is actually one of my favorite drinks. I did do a review of water. It was actually a side-by-side taste test. Oh, it was. It was a full-blown taste test. It was as I called it, a battle of the brands. It was a single brand, so it's a battle of the brand, and set them up side by side. It was something I've actually kind of jokingly said I wanted to do since even 2011 when I was reviewing, just energy drinks. I was saying, wouldn't that be something if one day I just reviewed a glass of water? And there I sat. I figured, let me go all out this time. I was kind of feeling it. I was kind of looking at this jug of water, and I said, I don't know. I got a feeling I kind of want to review this tonight. So I got another one, set them up, and reviewed water. And, if I ever get really short on ideas or things to review, I should just go out on a full-out water reviewing series. Well, any future water reviews, I would recommend, if there was one shortcoming about the review, I think it should have probably been a blind taste test. Because yeah. I think the distilled water, the spring water, I think maybe some of your inherent bias toward the one water that you did pick might have seeped through just because you didn't know you knew which one you were drinking before you went into it. Yeah, but we'll keep that for the next one. Please do. All right. So aside from these more common items where more people have tried them, so they can kind of be this point of reference for your audience. Yeah. What else drives you to try other newer fast food items? Because there's a lot coming out every day, and I imagine there's a lot that you end up passing over. I mean, if there's one recently that was introduced that I think I noticed that you haven't done a review of, it's those Taco Bell whatever delights that are kind of like they're like little munchkins, and apparently they have Captain Crunch like Captain Crunch berries like sprinkled on the outside. They look pretty horrifying. So I don't totally blame you for avoiding them. But I know you've reviewed Taco Bell items before, so it kind of strikes me as something that you might have touched down on, or at least had been aware of.
Right. The reason why, I'm kind of, I guess, selective in the things that I try out nowadays is I kind of plan things out. I mean, lately I've been able to greatly expand my horizon to what I want to review by going out and doing these, in public reviews that I've started putting up lately over the past month or so. By doing that,
yeah, you've been changing up the setting by hopping up in the car.
Yes, yeah, I've been doing some reviews in the car, and I've also actually gone down to some different places and actually just sat at the table at that locale and reviewed a product there. Normally I used to just be confined to what I would call it my reviewing edifice, reviewing chamber, as I'd historically call it. And in doing that, I kind of have to review things. All right, it's nearby, I can get it, I could bring it back, and it's not going to be cold. But now branching out, I'm able to just expand the horizon, really. Be able to try new things. But even then, when you have everything open like that, you still might wonder, all right, he was able to review, say, the Halloween Whopper from Burger King. Which
I am deathly afraid of that black bun.
Yeah, it is intimidating. It is intimidating. But, you can say he reviewed that. Why didn't he try out this Taco Bell thing? And the reason being is just because I got to have the way I plan things out. Sometimes I'll take a break here. I'll take a break there. I'll devote a day to doing the VORW podcast, broadcast, YouTube video, whatever you'd like to call that. And I'll have to plan everything out, not weeks in advance. Usually I'll just go week by week. I'll say, all right, Thursday I'm going to go out and review this. Saturday I'm going to review this energy drink. And I'll kind of plan it out. And by the time I get all that done, an item which may have been relevant, a few weeks ago, by the time it would come to review that, everyone may have already, kind of tried that. And conflicting with what I said earlier about the items everyone's tried, this is focusing mostly for the newer items, the limited edition items. The items that are going to be here for a few weeks, and then they're going to just go away. Because then if I try it, put the review up, and by the time it's up, it's already off the menu. It would still be a video, but it wouldn't necessarily be informative. Because really, with the channel, what I want to do is both inform and entertain. To give people my thoughts, views, and opinions on a product that I'm reviewing, and hopefully make it mildly bearable to view at the same time.
I mean, a lot of where exactly do you think the entertainment factor comes in with your videos? Is it kind of in your demeanor? Is it in your delivery and your bluntness? Kind of your dry sense of humor? Because a lot of your videos, they don't necessarily work up to the same, I guess, aesthetics of a lot of other popular YouTube videos. Yeah. I mean, most of your videos are in one take, and it's just a very intimate, just kind of low-key setting much of the time, and there's no bells and whistles or anything like that. It's pretty much just you a lot of the time, trying the food in real time and giving us the opinion that you're coming up with sort of on the fly. Yeah,
I always film the review in just one take. No real editing policy, so if something happens, I remember in one review I just spilled a glass of water everywhere. I just got off camera, cleaned it up, and kept it rolling the whole time. But I think the real thing that I think is an entertainment aspect, I'd probably say two things, definitely, is what kind of appeal to people. Number one, just the whole setting. I can't say how many other, there's got to be some. I know for a fact there's some. There has to be. But I wouldn't say there's a massive amount of individuals on YouTube wearing what many would consider their quote, Sunday best to review a hamburger. So I think that whole scene and just the setting and the scenario and even just how it's filmed is one thing that people might, maybe scratch their heads and say, what is this? And kind of check it out, investigate.
So you know right off the bat, you're fully aware of just how, I guess I guess you could say, to put it nicely, out of place you are in the modern era.
Oh, absolutely.
And you're just kind of out there totally accepting it and thinking that, as much as it is you realize that to your average person, it seems kind of odd and that it might attract them to the videos.
Oh, yes. No, I know that I'm not, not like the average Joe on the street, and I know that. And, I just, as I always say, I just do me. I just embrace, how I am, what I wear, what I do. And, I just say I am what I am. I do what I do, and it is what it is.
While you do feel like that now, I'm sure that there probably is a point in time, maybe when your YouTube channel was first starting to gain traction, and you probably did, catch quite a bit of flack from some online users.
Oh, yeah.
Who, thought that maybe how you dressed was dorky, or however you want to put it. I'm sure that's probably one of the nicer ways to put it. I'm sure you've seen much worse online and in your YouTube comments. So, I mean, this position, this feeling that you have now, I guess this kind of comfort that you have in your own skin, is this, always kind of how you felt, or, has been on YouTube kind of thickened your skin a little bit?
Really, it thickened my skin a lot. I really, I guess, had the epiphany that, I am how I am and I'm all right with it. I probably had that in early 2013, when, the pan pizza review, was posted on Reddit, was spreading to a few other websites. It kind of went viral in a sense, it got, 300,000 views in just a matter of days. And that's how the whole channel really blew up. It was a sudden explosion, if you will.
Just based off of that one review.
Yeah, off that one review, and then it kind of spread around, and from there, then it just started growing, and that's where everything started. But before that, I was operating for almost 2 years previous. I only had about maybe 200 subscribers. So at that time, there weren't too many people commenting, too many people giving you criticism or constructive criticism or whatever you'd like to call it. There weren't too many people doing that. So I was kind of just, before then, in my own little world, kind of. I was just doing my own little thing. More, I guess I wasn't as self-aware, as I am now. After that, seeing, all the comments, it thickened my skin a lot. And instead of saying, look at what all these people are saying, I got to ditch the suits, I got to change my hairstyle, blah, 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 I just accepted it. And I said, I am how I am, and that's all there is to it.
Well, you accepted it, but also, it seems like it was a bit of an onslaught of negativity that you certainly worked through, and you continued, and you didn't allow it to stop you. But, for a great deal of time, up until very recently, you weren't allowing comments on a lot of your videos, mostly because of a lot of that negativity that pops up, and just, the general trolls and all that kind of stuff. But as I just said, your policy on that has changed very recently. So, what has the change recently been, that you're just kind of feeling like, I should allow comments, because I know that you've sort of interviewed your fans and asked your fans personally, if they would like comments to be open, and they said yes, but, that's kind of been a resounding opinion for a while. So, something else had to have changed other than just, your viewers wanted comments.
Oh yeah, it's always been, no denying that it was difficult at times, just having to deal with all that. And the comments, they were blocked almost for probably about over 2 years before I finally unblocked them. And the reason I did that was because number one, in that 2 years, I kind of, learned a lot about the YouTube community. In that time, I had time to kind of build up, get a thicker skin, realize that what the people are saying doesn't really, if the negativity doesn't really matter. And the most important thing that I would do to really get a grasp on where things would stand with the comments was probably every 5 or 6 months when they were disabled, I would on some random video that I would upload, maybe a review here and there, instead of blocking the comments, I'd leave them as, I guess, approved, where it would look like comments were open. So people who saw the video would comment, but it wouldn't show up. Instead, it would go to filtered, and I'd be able to see the comments and approve or not approve them. And in doing so, I wouldn't approve any of them, but I'd be able to read what the community would be saying as if I had comments open on this video.
Sure.
So it'd give me good feedback on where things stood. You know, if it was tons of people saying, F you, blah, 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 I might have still scratched my head and I might have said, well, do I really want to have this up? Or if it was, some good feedback, some criticism, there's always going to be some criticism and the haters, as some call them. There's always going to be that online. But if it's, kind of like a balanced percentage for each, that would make me think otherwise. And over time, I began seeing that kind of change, where it was more people who were just genuinely interested in the reviews, just enjoying the videos, giving feedback, suggestions for what could be reviewed. And overall, I began to see kind of a change in how that was. And I began thinking, and I also feel like, I had the VORW show where I would read fan mail and respond to it, but some people aren't willing to sit through, a 50-minute video to hear their letter responded to,
Sure.
And I thought, having the comments enabled with seeing how the community was changing would also be a nicer way to be able to connect with the community, let subscribers and viewers interact directly with each other, give suggestions directly to me without having to go through a hassle of, an email or a YouTube message, and it would allow me to directly respond to them. So over time, and after having built up a thicker skin, I finally came to the decision in probably August of 2015, where I said, I'm gonna put comments up on a few reviews. I did that, and it was overwhelmingly positive. And I thought, well, after that, didn't publicize that I was bringing back the comments. I just did it spur of the moment. I thought, now I'm just going to see how people feel about it, if people support the decision. And when I made that poll, I already pretty much figured what the majority was going to be. But I wanted to see the ratio between the people who fully wanted the comments back, the people who wanted them kind of approved, or the people who didn't want them back. And there was a great turnout, and obviously the overwhelming majority wanted the comments back, and back they are. And I'll check the comments out. I look at them, but it's nowhere near as bad, or maybe that's the wrong way of saying it. Maybe it's just my skin is thicker now, and what I might have perceived as insults back in the day, 2013 or so, now I just I'm able to immediately discard that as just trolling and so forth.
Well, also, once you hear certain insults over and over and over and
over
again,
it just doesn't have the same effect anymore. It's just like, yeah, all right.
It doesn't. And it kind of gets old, and after a while, the insults kind of become a form of entertainment, and it's like, God, that's all you could come up with.
Yeah, exactly.
I've heard that one. I've heard that one 100 times.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's like, you're used to it. No big deal.
Sure. So despite this hate, despite the trolls, despite, this influx of viewers on that one particular video that kind of blew your channel up in a sense and maybe brought a lot of negativity for a short amount of time, this wave of negativity, in the midst of all of that, you did manage to grow what seems like a pretty passionate fan base. I mean, when you did allow comments again, I noticed on those first initial videos where you started allowing comments, it seemed like, and I don't know if you were moderating them, please, let me know, but it seems like everybody in the comments was on their best behavior, and anybody who was saying something slightly negative, it's like, hey, shut up, we got comments again, just cut the crap.
Yeah.
You want him to take comments away? You know, it seemed like not only that, but it seemed like everybody was really encouraging and appreciative and really happy. Not only that you allowed comments, but it seemed like they just wanted to genuinely express their enjoyment for what you do.
Oh yeah. The comments, really, I was actually taken back by how positive it was too, and it could be people just, as you say, just trying to be on their best behavior. But even still, on reviews, on a review that I uploaded last night and so on, after comments have been back for well over a month now, they're still overwhelmingly good. Now some trolls or whatever might come out now, when they see comments are back for good. But even still, they're still overwhelmingly good, and I think a lot of people are just happy and excited to have the comments back. Some people might have found out about the channel in May of 2013, and all they knew really were just no comments. And to finally have that freedom to be able to just express their views, their thoughts, their own comments, hence the name. I think really is that a lot of people just like that. They're happy about that. And, I don't really moderate the comments. Every here and there I might, take one thing down, but it's not like I scrutinize every word of every comment and, all right, let me take, 10 out of the 20 comments that are up down because I don't like this. Most of the time
Sure.
I just let the stuff stay up, and I figure it's a community and they can say what they want.
And kind of speaking of that community and the positivity amongst the people who really do enjoy what you do. I mean, it seems like there are some people, and I've noticed this from some of whom have taken the time to write you in email form or in a YouTube message form on your VORW shows. It seems like with some people who watch what you do, they are enjoying it and they are getting some kind of gratification out of it beyond just simply getting an opinion out of you. I mean, it seems like there are some people who similarly like you are kind of old souls in a sense and, watch what you do and are like, wow, this guy likes to dress in a way similar to me. Or you even have kids who are emailing you asking you for fashion advice.
Yep. Yeah. I'm just going to say, I'm not super fashionable in 2015 terms. I don't have whatever that haircut is where they shave the sides and back of their head off and then slip the top back. I don't have that haircut, and the suits I wear are an older style, but still people, not everyone is interested in completely, slim fit clothing and certain extremely modern styles. So some people will come to me for fashion advice, and a lot of people, as you really brought on, a lot of people just are interested in the channel, not just from, an opinion perspective, not just to check out the videos to see what I want to say about this burger because they were interested in trying that out. But some people just watch it because perhaps they just enjoy the setting, or, maybe they just enjoy the videos themselves. They're just legitimate fans. They'll just watch the content or listen to the VORW just because they have maybe something or other that they like about the channel itself, be it.
Well, it seems like they're connecting with you on some kind of a personal or ideological level.
Yes. I imagine there's some people who, be able to relate maybe to what I say in the VORW shows, or
sure.
even just in a simple tutorial level, on how I dress. I might say, hey, I wear suits all the time too. I never thought, anyone else really did this so seriously. And some people will be able to connect on that level too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, and it seems like, especially in 2015, the style of dress that you indulge in, I imagine it would be just a lot of extra work to kind of maintain. Yeah,
really. Right now, it's just because of how long I've been doing this. Some people will say to me, you can't be serious about, wearing a suit all the time. This is just like a costume for the videos, right? And I'll say, no, it's how I dress every day. I mean, as I speak right now, I'm going with a vest and tie set, right now. But really, because I've been dressing this way probably consistently for the past 7 years now. Because I've been doing that for so long, it's just more of like something that I'm used to. It's not really, I sit there at the closet, in a thinking position, staring at this rack of suits for 30 minutes thinking, what suit am I going to wear today? It's not really like that for me. I usually spur the moment. I'll think, it's maybe a chilly day, so I'm going to grab this gray suit, standard white shirt, and maybe a grayish black tie to go with that.
It's just kind of become second nature. It's become second nature, you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's always just, I guess you'd say, and I use this comparison sometimes, a lot of the times you could think of it, the amount of thought that someone puts into picking out a T-shirt and jeans to wear is not too much thought usually. It's not like grab the pair of jeans, grab this T-shirt, and I'm out of here. It's kind of like the same thing with me, where I'll just grab the suit, grab the shirt, grab the tie, and I'm out of here too.
Well, I mean, it's not only with your style of dress, but I think also your accent, which I'm very familiar with because I've grown up in New England as well. Just also your manners, as well as your love of shortwave radio. I think a lot of people would kind of characterize you as old-fashioned. However, the fast food reviews, the energy drink reviews, I know that you've in some videos talked and given your opinions on newer episodes of The Walking Dead. I understand that you may be a gamer as well. It kind of seems like you have one foot in the old world, but one foot in the new world as well.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. I definitely have many likes and interests that would reflect to a previous era. Probably the way my accent, as you said, my interest for shortwave radio, the way I dress. So all of that really does reflect on, an earlier time. At the same time, though, absolutely, I'm a big fan of The Walking Dead, all the fast food. So it's definitely a contrast, really, between, say, the early to mid 1900s and 2015. And I think the result is it's a very interesting combination. And that might be another thing that's very interesting to some people, to see this kind of clash. Some people would say you look like a time traveler from 1930 that popped up in 2015, and here you are.
So, I mean, obviously, would you say that your affinity for this older era is so strong that if you could be a time traveler, you'd go back and do it, or do you enjoy the amenities of newer technology too much? I mean, is right now the era you'd rather be living in?
If I had the ability, I'd probably go back in time, maybe for a period of time. I wouldn't say I'd go back there and just be stuck forever, because I think if I was transported right now back in time, I'd miss the internet. I'd probably go through, internet withdrawal, and So I think the combination. I think it would be interesting to go back and see how I would cope and deal in that type of world and in that era. But
hey, they had food reviews back then too. You'd probably just have to get a job at the local paper, though.
Yeah, exactly. So right now, really, it is an interesting combination, because I can still do the things that I enjoy that would strike people as being from a previous era, i.e. shortwave listening and shortwave radio. That's still around, even as it was around, 60, 70, 80 years ago. That's still around today, and I can still enjoy that today. So right now, I've been able to find a good balance for myself, where I could enjoy the things that may not be as popular as they were back then. I can still enjoy those things now, and I can still enjoy, the amenities of 2015.
To hop into another interest of yours, just because, you were just talking about shortwave radio.
Yeah.
I have a background in radio myself, but, more AM, FM.
Yeah.
I'm very unfamiliar with the shortwave band. And can you maybe give us a little bit of, a very short rundown of exactly, how someone listens to the shortwave and, what kind of programming people can find on it?
Sure. Now, shortwave radio lies between where the AM band ends and where the FM band begins. There's a space between that. And part of that space...
So there's a big space between the AM and the FM band.
There is.
that
FM begins,
most people aren't even aware of.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's a massive space between that. And it's not like there's nothingness between there. There is other frequencies between there. So from where AM ends at 1700 kilohertz, all the way until 30,000 kilohertz is where shortwave is. And shortwave, you can consider it kind of like AM radio, but it's used for many purposes. It still uses that standard analog quality, nothing really digital, no digital radio really on shortwave. The difference between shortwave radio and AM radio is the distance that the broadcasts travel, right? Standard AM transmitter, say a high-powered one, might be able to cover, say, from New York City. Maybe at night it'll be able to cover some of New England, some of the Mid-Atlantic, but that's about it. Whereas a shortwave transmitter from, say, New York City, you'd be able, with a given amount of power for the transmitter, you'd be able to broadcast all the way to Africa, Asia, Europe, the Middle East, and so on. And someone with a certain receiver in those parts of the globe would be able to pick up your broadcast crystal clear. So
with the same amount of power, someone on a shortwave band gets greater distance than someone on an AM band?
Yep. So let's say there was an AM transmitter with 50 kilowatts. That's 50,000 watts. A shortwave transmitter with that same power, 50,000 watts, would be able to probably span a good amount of the globe, given the right antenna and other variables. But yes, with the same power of each, shortwave has a lot greater of a reach. Now, as for the content, say you did have a shortwave receiver, which you can buy online. I doubt you could really go into a store nowadays and find one. Maybe back when Radio Shack was doing good, maybe. But if you did have a receiver, what would you be able to hear? You have the good and the bad. There's a lot of, very, very, extreme religious people who use shortwave, and some of that can be, entertaining to hear. At the same time, though, there's also international broadcasters. The BBC, they have the BBC World Service. They broadcast on shortwave also, and in the afternoons you can hear broadcasts from them. So you'll be able to hear news. You can actually hear music programs. This one station run by the U.S. government called The Voice of America usually plays a lot of top 40 hit music at times. There's stations from China. You could even hear North Korean propaganda. And there's a lot of other programs in different languages. Sometimes the BBC and this one station out of Australia will cover, soccer games. So it has a good variety. A lot of stuff that you might find on AM radio, some stuff that you wouldn't find on it. And it all really comes together on shortwave, where it targets probably more of an international audience than a local or regional or even national audience. And for that, even though there aren't too many shortwave listeners around, there's still at least probably hundreds of millions of shortwave listeners across the globe. So there's still a viable audience for this platform. And a lot of
this isn't necessarily a medium that's like in danger of disappearing tomorrow.
No, not yet. A lot of governments actually still invest in shortwave and broadcast different programs in different languages. In some places of the globe, especially third world countries, shortwave radio is not necessarily listened to for pleasure, but it's vital for even survival and, for people to just get their news, potentially life-saving information in places where there's limited infrastructure. Internet might not yet fully be there or very unstable. Television is not doing the greatest yet. Shortwave radio has the ability to reach those places and provide people with information that they may desperately need.
Okay. And am I to understand that sort of maintaining or building a shortwave transmitter might be easier or cheaper than maintaining an AM or an FM transmitter? Because I know that you have been trying to pursue doing your own shortwave radio program yourself.
Yeah, the thing with transmitters is you need a sustainable amount of power. So if you had, enough money to start an AM station, you could probably start a shortwave one too. But, if you had $500 in your pocket, you really wouldn't be able to start your own station. And a lot of stations understand that there's some people who might want to get on the air, but don't have the money to build their own station. So they'll actually broker airtime out. And they'll say, we're charging such and such amount of dollars for an hour of broadcast. Just name what frequency you want to use, what area of the globe you want to target, and we'll hook you up. So you'll be able to be on the air without actually having to build your own station. And I was actually able to do that. Earlier this year, I was able to get in touch with this shortwave station out of Maine called WBCQ, and they had a great deal for just $20 an hour. I was able to buy airtime and actually get a variant of my VORW show on the air, and it was heard across the globe, across the North American continent, and it even made it across the Atlantic Ocean, and there were a lot of listeners in the UK also. But,
so did you just sort of hand them an audio file and they broadcast the audio file?
Yep, I just made an audio file, talked for a little bit, played some music, and then I was able to just put that up on their Dropbox. And from there, the people at the station just took care of it, hooked it up to the transmitter, and just got it sent out to the world.
So you can kind of pick where you sort of want it sent, and, it can go in a very broad, very wide, very far-reaching direction. Am I to understand that as a result, is shortwave radio just not, I guess, regulated in the same way that the AM and the FM bands are, not only when it comes to broadcast range, but playing music as well, because of my time in radio, I do understand that there are quite a few regulations, not only in relation to broadcast, but, what music you're playing and, the BMI and having to pay certain fees to license the music that you're playing.
Yeah, shortwave radio is almost completely unregulated by the FCC due to the fact that, number one, just the amount of space that it is, the amount of frequencies they might have to monitor. And number two, it's not just domestically, but they'd have signals coming in from all around the globe. It would just be the sheer volume of things they would have to deal with and look at and examine that, for the most part, the FCC has really backed off on shortwave. I mean, as a matter of fact, there's probably several hundred shortwave pirate stations in the U.S., which don't have a permit to broadcast, but they'll just transmit anyways. So with that being said, the FCC really does not regulate shortwave whatsoever, and it really is the epitome of free speech. Really you can probably on the air say and do what you want, and there would be little to no consequence of that.
And so with your broadcast and the broadcast of any shortwave station reaching so far and wide, and with the FCC not kind of regulating, which station is taking up which space, is there ever a lot of, I guess, overlap or a lot of radio interference in relation to some of these programs?
Sometimes there is, especially during the peak broadcasting times for a certain area. Say, like in the early to mid-evening hours of North America, that's when a lot of stations will target the U.S. and Canada and try to broadcast there. And at times, sometimes they'll accidentally broadcast on the same frequency, and they'll kind of overlap on each other. But at the same time, to try to coordinate that so it's not just a total mess, the whole time. What they'll try to do sometimes is some of the stations will be in contact with each other. So one owner might send the other an email, and they'll be able to coordinate schedules and publish them. And in the end, it'll usually work itself out, but at times it can be confusing. But they usually work themselves out, because usually if there is ever a clash between two stations and they're broadcasting on top of each other, usually one of them will realize it and they'll say, gosh, no one can hear what we're saying, we'll move over here. And they'll publicize that, and they usually sort things out pretty quickly if there's ever a conflict.
And so as a shortwave enthusiast, not only are you dabbling in trying to create some of the programming on this band, but also, as someone who's a listener and a fan of shortwave, are you merely just kind of sitting back and listening to the programs and stopping whenever you find something you like, or are you constantly just I guess, exploring through the whole shortwave band at particular hours of the day and just trying to like document what programs are happening, where they're coming from, what people are saying?
I'll do a combination of all three. You know, a lot of the times I'll find a program that I like, and I'll stop and I'll listen to it for a while, and if it catches my interest, I'll keep listening. If not, I'll keep tuning. Usually what I first do is I scan through the range of frequencies I want to listen to at that time, and I'll just do a brief run-through, see what's there, and then after that, look in closer detail at anything that caught my eye, and then maybe listen for the duration of the program if I find something good. One thing that I can do with shortwave, which I like, is, and this is also an incentive that some stations will use in order to kind of find out how many people are listening to them. If you write them what they call a reception report, they'll give an email address. You'll send them an email. You'll say, you know, I was listening in New York with this receiver. I heard you between 5 and 6 p.m. You were coming in good. And you send them an email with this information. Number one, they'll get a good idea of, from the amount of emails they get, how many people might be listening, especially in Western nations or media-rich nations with the Internet readily available. But in return, if you were able to provide your contact information and an address, they'll usually be able to send you some freebies from the station, kind of as a little token for writing in. And the most well-known thing that some stations will send, they call this a QSL card. It's kind of like a little decorative postcard from the station confirming that, you know, you listened. And, you know, as it may sound, you might say, well, why would someone want to collect these pieces of paper from these stations? You know, you could say the same thing. You know, why do people collect baseball cards sometimes?
Sure. It's kind of like collecting license plates or something.
Yeah, exactly that. So I collect those, and I'll write to the stations, and, you know, I'll see how many I can get, and I have them in a binder and everything. So, you know, I do have a collection of those going too. So that's just another little incentive for me personally to keep listening.
That's really fantastic. You've been very open about, you know, your opinions and your personal interests on your YouTube channel. But are there any other interests that, you know, you feel incredibly passionate about that you would feel comfortable sharing that, you know, you haven't quite broadcast on your YouTube channel yet? You know, not that we're expecting you to make a future segment out of anything, but I guess are there any kind of pursuits or passions that you have, both new or old school, you know, that sort of haven't made it onto your YouTube channel yet?
You know, thinking about that, most of the time I am very open with my interests and my passions on YouTube. One thing that I really don't talk about too much on YouTube, and again, a lot of the time because of YouTube's own, you know, regulations and copyright and everything, is music. I do listen.
Oh, hey, I'm a big fan of that too.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You're the go-to music guy, really. You are. You're the leading authority on the latest music. But really, that's one thing I don't talk about too much in too much detail on YouTube, because really, when you talk about music, you know, number one, you got to know what you're talking about. You got to be a professional about it, as you are. Number two, some people might want to, you know, hear the music, and sometimes YouTube can be a real pain about that.
Sure.
But that's one thing that I really do. I am an avid music listener. I always have something going music-wise if I'm not listening to the shortwave, and that's something I don't really talk about too much. I really don't. I don't really talk about, you know, what my favorite musical genres are, or what songs I heard. You know, I don't really go on about that, but it's something that still does, you know, interest me very much.
Well, you know, obviously a lot of people listening to this podcast on this YouTube channel are big music fans as well. What albums or artists have you seen yourself listening to repeated lately?
You know, my favorite genre of music is probably popular music and rock music, maybe some alternative and punk too, from the late 90s, early 2000s. So I'd probably say what I catch myself listening to a lot is Oasis.
Sure.
Oh yeah, I'm a big Oasis fan. And I listen to some other of those those classic groups from the era, Third Eye Blind. Then of course I'll go back to the the early '90s, Nirvana, and even I'll listen to some classic rock too. Some of those groups are very, very talented. So that's really what I listen to the most. I have this whole mental playlist of all the songs, whatever I'm feeling at the time.
Sure.
And I'll usually listen to one, and then after that I'll see what else I'm feeling, and I'll usually do that. And by the end of the day, I'll find I've listened to 20 songs or more.
It's pretty interesting. Not only that you bring up that era, and I recently did a classic review that will be coming out during a future classic review segment of Nirvana's In Utero, which is one of their most intense records, an album that I really like, but also talking about Third Eye Blind. It's funny because I had that debut album of theirs when it originally came out, and when that album dropped, it was really an era of CDs, and cassettes were kind of on the way out.
Yep.
And right now, and I don't know if this is something you have any interest in, maybe this is a part of more of your modern tastes, and I use CDs and MP3s as well, but, now we're in the midst of a bit of a vinyl revolution or something. And apparently the vinyl market has grown just as big as the digital music market in a lot of ways. And I was in a record store the other day, and I had seen that debut Third Eye Blind record reissued on vinyl, which, to me was just kind of, I don't know, sort of ridiculous. I like vinyl, and I think vinyl records are great, and I think a lot of great music that was put out back in the day. That's really kind of the medium to hear it on. Just as I think there are some records that they were mixed and they were mastered to sound the best on cassette. So if you could run across them on a fresh, not warped cassette, they probably sound great on it. But to sort of rethink Third Eye Blind as just being put on a vinyl record is kind of crazy to me. It's sort of interesting how today, in this very modern, this very digital era, it seems like we're more obsessed with the older world than we ever have been. And in that respect, while you may feel out of place in some respects with your suits and all of that, in other ways you're really not that out of place.
Oh, that's very true. I remember even back in 2012 when vinyl records were really starting to become quite popular again. People were going on about how they were getting this, how they were getting that. And even when I was looking up a few days ago, actually, some popular songs, and there they were, on vinyl. And, just when you think about that, it's not the kind of music that you would imagine being on a record,
Absolutely.
So it's just very interesting to see. A lot of people still, when they think of vinyl, they might think of, some, even, the Beatles, classic rock, even classic pop music, and even going way back to swing music. They'll think of that as on a record, and not, hearing Third Eye Blind, or, even in the present day, hearing, Pitbull on vinyl,
Oh God, that's probably somewhere.
Oh, yeah.
There's probably a Pitbull vinyl somewhere.
Yeah, gotta be.
Well, aside from music, I know that another thing that you've just kind of broadcast recently on your YouTube channel, I guess you're somewhat passionate about traveling, or at least you had done some traveling recently. And had tried some different fast food places or some different restaurants. Maybe on future trips or in future reviews, have you kind of any interest in maybe sort of covering some smaller eating spots or anything like that?
People have always suggested to me, they'll say, you always review bigger brands. I would like to see you review maybe some local places, some smaller places. And I think, in my food repertoire, I do know of many local establishments which do have great food, and it'd be great to review. But the reason why I'm always hesitant on reviewing more local, smaller places is just because I try to find how applicable they might be to a wider audience, to a nationwide audience. And if there is, a more local place, just one restaurant, but say, it's been talked about on television, say, Guy Fieri went there on Food Network, or was mentioned on the Travel Channel, and people kind of know about it. it kind of has almost an iconic type of following. That I might review one day if I'm ever out traveling and I see this diner, let's say. I might review that. But say it's just like some mom and pop, pizza place. I wouldn't necessarily give that a review just based on how applicable it might be. I can go and talk for 10 minutes about how good their pizza might be. But in the end, while people might still watch it, how many people would really be influenced about it? Maybe 3 or 4 who might be in the general area and can probably go there regularly. But chances are there's not going to be a mass pilgrimage to this pizza place just because I said they have a good pepperoni slice.
I don't know, man. It might be an experiment worth trying. Yeah,
one day it might just be worth a shot. Just to see, hey, if I review this pizza place, what would happen? Just sort
of toss one in there every once in a while and just kind of see what the reaction is, and also, you could end up in there the next week, and maybe the people who run the restaurant have seen your review and they either love it and they give you a free pizza, or they hate you and they kick you out and you're not allowed in anymore.
No, you bring up a good point. You never know until you try, really.
It could make life for you locally really, really interesting and exciting to start reviewing the fast food places and the restaurant sort of places that are immediately near you, of which, I know, being in New England myself, I mean, there's a ton of small mom and pop places everywhere in every direction, selling all kinds of food. I mean, it seems like there's new restaurants kind of cropping up everywhere every day around here. Yeah,
I can say the same. So yeah, maybe one day I'll just throw that into the mix and see what happens.
Please do. I'll watch it. And to sort of end things off, I wanted to ask you to finish sort of right now. What are your plans for the future in terms of your personal life, your work, and even your YouTube channel? I mean, as far as your 5-year plan goes, I guess, are you focusing on continuing to be a YouTuber? I mean, I noticed recently you've also started monetizing on your videos, I believe, which I don't think you had done for a great deal of the channel's existence. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Are you trying to go full time with the YouTube channel and sort of take it to the next level, or do your work ambitions kind of sit outside of YouTube?
And definitely, right now, what I see is definitely going to be focusing on the channel a lot more. One of the reasons why I did, I guess, monetize is to keep that sustainable, to be able to get enough to keep the channel moving, keep things flowing, acquiring, number 1, for transportation, number 2, for just keeping things going, maybe upgrades here or there, being able to increase the frequency of the reviews too, but definitely going to continue devoting more time to the YouTube. The channel's not going to be disappearing or shutting down anytime soon. I have no plans on stopping the reviews. Right now, my plan is to definitely continue on with the reviews. Probably keep a focus on what I have now. Mostly popular items, some frozen food places, some energy drinks, maybe even a local place here and there. One thing that I would like to see with the channel, just recently I brought back the Idle Mind lecture series by popular demand. Mm-hmm. So kind of also focus on other series too. Maybe an Idle Mind lecture here and there. Keep working on the VORW shows. And in terms of any new series, I've had this idea kind of bouncing around in my mind for about a year now, is maybe to one day branch out from just energy drinks that I'm reviewing to regular drinks. Different types of sodas. Say if Coke or Pepsi comes out with a new flavor or some promotional item, if there's a new type of good old Mountain Dew, be able to try that out too and review that, and just do general drink reviews as well of various beverages.
Sure. Yeah, I think I think branching out would probably be best. Not only for the variety of the channel, but also you can't just be eating fast food and frozen pizza all the time. You're not going to feel too good if you continue on that.
Oh yeah, you speak the truth.
All right. I want to thank you for coming on the show, being a guest, answering the questions, being a good sport, and I appreciate you taking the time.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's really been a pleasure, and I enjoyed being here a lot.